Welcome in to the Thursday edition of Robbie and Rex Road here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I'm Joe Rexroad. Paul Kuharsky in again for Robbie Stanley today and tomorrow. Got Nick Keyser on the ones and twos. That's what Chase likes to say. I have no idea what that means. Nick Keyser on the ones and twos. What does that mean? I have no idea.
On the one,
Are there not threes?
and
Do you have no threes in there?
There are numbers on the board that help me control you speaking currently.
And they're only ones and twos?
1, 2, 3, 4.
So why does he say the ones and twos?
well,
That's just what they've said.
there's no 3 and 4, I would presume today, because there's 1 and 2.
That's
brilliant. Not correct.
No.
1 and 2.
Good. I like the thinking.
That was good. That's
I mean,
one of your
it's-
best
yeah.
lines. Yeah.
1 and 2 are the buttons that put you as a speaking voice on the air.
Okay.
Those are the outputs.
And what are 3 and 4?
3 helps us record on this mighty machine back here for our intern, Colin.
Colin. I was going to mention
Connor.
And 4 helps me record on this PC that I work on.
Fantastic.
It was that incorrect. It was like like the McNeil Lair thing on SNL. Wrong. That was good. I like that. Today got some John Fogerty tickets. Also, again today, August 7th, First Bank Amphitheater. Going to give those away. Probably, like 7 o'clock hour. I think we'll do something like
It'll
that.
go to caller 9 at 7
You
o'clock.
want to go like color 17?
I just like call 9 is my number, and he'll
Yeah.
never go with 9 because he has to clear the phones and then start again.
Yeah, that's
Once or twice.
That's going a little deep. Let's go a little deep there.
I like that.
We'll talk about depth today on the show, but we're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we're going to start, PK, big picture, NFL, because we've talked Titans, and we're going to talk more Titans. Also today, we've got some college baseball and college football talk that we're going to get into today, but I wanted to get into the NFL at large with you. I don't think we've done a lot of that. I want to get into that. We're gonna also get into more of that tomorrow. By the way, Charles Robinson is actually on assignment with the Texans. All of a sudden, the Houston Texans are all sexy. So Charles, is going to spend a day with them. I'd like to know the last time Charles spent a day with the Houston Texans. Before, and he lives in Houston, by the way. But anyway,
He lives in Houston?
he does. He's lived there for quite a while now.
That's weird.
Is it?
I mean, I picture him as a Midwestern guy.
Yeah, he was in Chicago for a long time before that, but yeah, he and his girlfriend have lived in Houston for many years now, and he's going to bump to tomorrow. So tomorrow we got Charles, we got TD, we got an elite day of NFL talk. But I want to get into with you this question: which teams in this league, for whatever reason, can be because you think they're going to stink, you think they're going to be great, you just think they're a train wreck, whatever it is. What are the most, and I'm not confining you to a number either, what are the most interesting teams in the NFL to you this year, Paul Kuharsky?
I wrote down several. I'll start with the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson, apparently with the shoulder injury behind, with another year to see if he could get his head right after all of his scandalous behavior and the resulting punishment, takes over a playoff team that added Jerry Jeudy, a receiver I don't love, but an additional weapon. It's got a pretty good roster. I don't like what they did at backup quarterback with Jameis Winston, who I just don't like, and Tyler Huntley. Could have had Justin Fields, could have stuck with Joe Flacco, could have gone Mason Rudolph, could have gone a lot of directions.
Real quick on that, I do believe what many have said up there, which I don't think you could go back to Flacco.
Yeah, that's fine. But there was a good pool of backup quarterbacks available ahead of Jameis Winston. It was a pretty good turnover year for veteran backup quarterbacks. And Jameis Winston was not high enough in that pool. But I really like the Browns' talent. I really like the Browns' coaching. I think that I think the Steelers are not particularly good. I think they're beatable. There's a lot of unknowns about the Steelers that aren't typically unknown. Steelers have a way of finding their way into the playoff race, but they're not a 10 or 11 win team. I don't think, they're probably a 8 or 9 win team if they're in the hunt. Baltimore's tough. Cincinnati's tough, but I think Cleveland can be right there if Nick Chubb comes back from the injury, to what degree, and if Deshaun Watson can give them average quarterback play, not even be the star that they traded the world for and gave this guaranteed contract to. But I think there's a fascinating storyline there as to, and this is kind of his last chance. Can he be healthy? And is there signs of mental recovery where he's back to a normal NFL quarterback, or is he done? Did what his sins in Houston and his inability to recover from what he did there and the consequences end him?
Great one. Yeah. I mean, they would be high on my list too. No doubt. They are fascinating. They have a great roster. I agree. I think they have a good coach. I don't know if average quarterbacking from him does enough. You might be right.
Well, they have a very good quarterbacking last year.
But Flacco had some really good weeks.
Yeah, but he also had some average weeks.
Laid the ultimate egg in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But at times he was beyond, what I would have expected. I think, in this conference, which is the stronger conference, you might need to be good. Is that asking too much? Right now, it seems like it is.
Right now, it feels
distant.
Impossible.
Right. We have also seen multiple years of him playing at a high level. So I'm with you. I think they're definitely one of those most interesting teams.
And how crazy is it if they are a good football team held back by having sold out to get this quarterback
everything,
and
it was
deal
actually
with the
in
devil?
Place. Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, that's how it's shaping up, right? And I mean, you could, of course, they sit there and watch Baker Mayfield play well. Like Baker Mayfield's level of play with what they have would be working beautifully right now.
Yeah. But I mean, they never could have waited out Baker Mayfield.
Sure.
Baker Mayfield was a guy that needed the time and the change of scenery.
I agree.
I'll jump on the Chicago Bears as very interesting. Part of what makes them interesting is that they've not been interesting forever. Caleb Williams, I'm not a huge believer, but he's got Keenan Allen. He's got Rome Odunze. He's got DJ Moore. That is a nice 3-pack. Counting on Odunze to be an impact guy out of the gate. They overpaid DeAndre Swift, $14 million guaranteed, which is crazy. Shane Waldron, as the offensive coordinator, did really well with Geno Smith in Seattle. And I'm not an Eberflus guy. I don't know anybody that is.
That's where they're very interesting, right? Is it's like new era, but also maybe the last year of the old era. Yeah. Lame duck coach with the new era. Right.
But we're going to see a lot of them on TV, if I'm not mistaken. There's going to be too much hype about Williams, but there's legitimate hope there. I mean, that division, obviously, Detroit, I didn't put on my list because they're fascinating for all the same reasons that they were fascinating last year. And I still think very good in the cream of the crop in that division. And the Packers are right there too. So Chicago is playing. I mean, that's a really good division. Minnesota's got a very good roster too with the quarterback question, but Chicago can be, if things pan out the way they've architected it, could be a 500-ish team. We still use the expression 500, even though we know it's not coming. Throw a tie in there, make them 8-1.
There you go.
I mean, I don't think that's inconceivable. And I think there's a lot of intrigue in terms of how does Williams do? How does Waldron do with these offensive weapons? They've done a pretty good job of surrounding him and giving him a chance, much better chance than Fields had.
So just those two?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'll keep going.
I'll keep going. Philadelphia to me is very interesting.
So now we cross paths. That's one of mine for sure.
They're on the teeter-totter of, can they balance out? Can they go back up to where they were 2 years ago? Or did they continue to go down where they were last year, which was miserable? And this whole thing keys to one degree on Sirianni, but he's got two new coordinators in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. But really, it's keyed on one big expensive signing, $26 million fully guaranteed for your arch rivals running back in Saquon Barkley. I don't know, right? It's not wise to pay a lot of money for an aging running back. I know he
How
can.
old is Saquon Barkley?
He's not that old, but he's got injury history, and running backs on second contracts are automatically considered old. He's probably 26.
Derrick Henry just finished his second
He's
contract.
probably 27.
Yeah. Well, listen,
I doubt that move.
he's 27. Yeah,
Yeah.
just turned 27.
Look, if he plays well, the money doesn't really matter if they fit it under the cap and all of that. But I don't know. Kellen Moore didn't light it up. So you could say, hey, they have a new coordinator. It's going to be different. But why is Kellen Moore available?
Right. Yeah. No, that they're mine too, because they're one of mine too, because again, you have a coach who was the toast of the league 5 minutes ago, and now it's like, what's going on with this guy and his staff? And it all crumbled. And I guess I like the Barkley. If they get Barkley at his best in that offense, I don't care what they paid him. That's beautiful. Okay. Now, will they? I don't know. I mean, the injuries are what they are, but it's a huge gamble. But I kind of like the swing because I think he changes the dynamic there. I think he's that good when he is fully Saquon Barkley.
And I think you could say those same things about Fangio. Really changes the dynamic there. They wanted him a year ago. They couldn't get their house in order, and he made a commitment elsewhere. And then it didn't work out, and he got out, and they got him a year late. But he could settle things down on defense. And Sirianni lost his coordinators a year ago, and had guys that weren't very effective.
Didn't fill it well. Yeah, right. Absolutely. All right.
Huge year for Philadelphia.
Yes.
Because if this thing doesn't go well, Sirianni's out of a job. We're talking about a new hire there. Vrabel's name's going to come up amongst others.
Look at you pushing Mike Vrabel at 6 a.m. No,
Yeah.
but you're right. Yeah, he's circling if he doesn't take a Ohio State job. All right, we come back. I've got something. If you got more, we got more from you too. Robbie and Rex are 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex, show 125-106 for the game. Paul Kuharsky in for Robbie, talking most interesting teams in the NFL. So far we've got from PK, and I guess from me, I agree on the Eagles, and then you also had the Chicago Bears. They are certainly very intriguing. The Cleveland Browns. Go ahead.
I'll go
Who
three
else have we
more.
got? You got
I'll go
three more.
Three more. I'm very interested in
Okay.
the league. Buffalo. Can Curtis
All right,
Samuel,
you just took another one of mine.
Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and incumbent Khalil Shakur collectively replace Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis? I don't know. I think they've lost key people there in a division where the Jets should be better. I know the Jets are going to be on your list. I left the Jets off my list because they're obvious. I left the obvious table scraps for you.
Thank you. Actually, they weren't, but thank you.
I think Buffalo. I like Buffalo. I want Buffalo to be good. I wonder if Buffalo's window is starting to close, or if it's a kind of a pause year where they need to grow some of these guys. Hope that Keon Coleman can be good, maybe get back in the receiver market next year, and kind of replenish the defense a little bit too, and see where McDermott
Well, I was going to say, did Sean McDermott survive a pause year?
I don't know.
That's why they're one of my teams.
And there was very controversial piece by Tyler Dunn last year that had a lot of people saying a lot of bad things about Sean McDermott. I want Buffalo to be good. I think it's good to see Josh Allen out there. I think they're a fun, competitive team. When they're a competitive team, I think it's fun. I think it's interesting to see them in the heart of things. But I'm losing confidence in them right now.
Yeah, they're very interesting, and obviously they are pushing the addition by subtraction idea, right? With Diggs, and look, it was obviously difficult. You could see it was difficult, but sorry, there goes my computer. I tried to put up our YouTube feed so I could watch it and read the chat, and now I'm looking at
but there's a mute
Vingen
button.
Yes, I know, but I'm looking at Vingen and Lyman talking up there.
We're just going to replay that show. Sean, I'll be back in an hour.
Oh my goodness, technical difficulties.
How
do I get to our YouTube feed?
You got to fish around a little bit. I've got the Chargers because Harbaugh.
Gosh, darn it! You took another one of mine.
Harbaugh is interesting. They re-signed Bosa and Mac.
I guess if
on
you're going to take
cuts.
half the league, you're going to take some of mine.
Yeah, they got Bosa and Mac back on pay cuts. Their moves were relatively minor. Denzel Perriman, Gus Edwards, Hayden Hurst. None of that gets you excited. They lost their two big-time receivers. Joe Alton, Ladd McConkey are the future here. But I have trouble believing that Harbaugh isn't going to find a way to make Herbert better and to compete to win for a team that was consistently close but consistently failed. And him alone makes them interesting.
He does. This is definitely a year, like, if they have this big bounce back, and I think they'll certainly do for some level of bounce back. But if they have a pretty significant bounce back, it's going to be, the Harbster. I mean, it's the Harbaugh effect, right?
Yes. My last one you're not going to have.
Okay.
This is my train wreck team.
Okay.
And this is the biggest thing I'm going to say. So everyone pay very close attention here. This is a big statement coming from me.
6:22 a.m.
All right. I'm going to end with the big statement. My team is the Denver Broncos. I don't believe a bit in Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix's collegiate success was a result of Bo Nix being in college forever.
Okay.
Right. You're bound to figure it out over time. They traded Jerry Jeudy. They let Cushenberry walk. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Josh Reynolds collectively strike me as a soft group. I don't think there's a lot of physical stand up to people thing in that. And I think that Sean Payton is a product of a time and a place and Drew Brees more than he is a genius offensive innovator who's headed for the Hall of Fame. I think Denver's going to crash and burn this year. And I think Denver is not going to wind up recovering in time and being a good franchise under Sean Payton. I think it's going to be like the Panthers under George Seifert.
Interesting. That is a strong opinion. I can buy it. It's funny. Last year, I feel like Peyton and Russell Wilson, who clearly just couldn't stand each other, right? Probably two of the least likable people in the league, and they were together at odds.
Made it very
You know?
easy not to like Denver.
Yeah, but it's also like, and I think the answer could be both, right? But it's like, okay, so who was the problem? I mean, I think Russell Wilson has seen better days for sure, and clearly, it's amazing. I will say it's amazing seeing all this stuff come out from his time in Seattle, where at the time there wasn't much of
Like
right.
everybody's like, what's Seattle doing? And then it comes to pass like Seattle knew exactly what it was doing.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people that he just really does not appear to be much of a teammate, right? Or certainly not a leader. But Peyton, I don't know. I don't know if you're right, but I could buy it. You might be right.
Mark this day down. So
Yeah,
that we
but
can go
also
back to it.
it's like music, okay? Like every band has a certain amount of great music, and then they'll keep making albums,
Yes.
right? Like,
Except for Springsteen, who continues.
well,
to make great
sure, but yeah, I mean, like the Beatles went all the way. Everything they made was great,
Right.
and then they stopped. But like there's a lot of bands where it's like the first two albums were amazing, and then they kind of. I mean, maybe Peyton had a time. In football, you have a time and a place, and your stuff works perfectly, and you're ahead of the curve, and then. People catch up, and it's not like you always keep coming up with
and
new
how
answers.
many
You always
coaches
keep coming up with
go
innovation.
to a second place and do great? Parcells,
I think the coaches who do, I think they relate with people really well, and that's a big part of their
or
secret
you could
sauce.
say Belichick, but Belichick's first thing wasn't a success. It took
Yeah.
him the second time to have a success. But there are not as many coaches as you think who've gone success. Holmgren, didn't really
No,
do it the second
No,
place.
I mean Seattle. That was a disappointment. They gave him the world, and it didn't work out. So, but I think with Peyton,
Shanahan.
the reason you may be right is, like a lot of people don't like the guy. He just, and maybe it's different. We see what we see and all that, but he seems to be very much in love with himself.
All right, you're generously giving your guest host the floor.
So, well, you took a lot of mine, but basically the only two that I would add, I do think the Lions are intriguing because everyone thinks they're good now.
Yeah,
they were able to do
whole different deal.
But
they're going to be fun to watch. Very
fun. No, their offense is a blast. I mean, their offensive coordinator is really good. Ben Johnson is really good. And
who they get to replace Josh Reynolds, who I'm not a big.
Well,
fan
that's
of,
the thing is that's where. I mean, basically, they're counting on Jameson Williams to become a star this year, and I'm not sure that's happening. So, they have Laporta and they have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
It's reasonable to have an expectation for Jameson Williams, though, given what they invested in.
Yes, but I think they're a receiver short.
Yeah.
And then the Falcons. I think the Falcons are fascinating. The whole dynamic at quarterback is Kirk Cousins. I mean, I think he'll continue to play well. But what does that mean for them with the coaching change?
I think
Raheem Morris is good. You talk about Raheem Morris?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay. I mean, I do like it. But we'll see. They actually have accumulated some decent talent on his side of the ball here.
Well, I mean, they waited on that cap space forever, and now they have it. So they should be well stocked. And the other thing about them is they're in a really pretty terrible division. Panthers should be 2 wins automatically. Buccaneers are more competitive than you expect, but still, you should beat the Buccaneers. And the Saints, I know people tend to like the Saints. Dennis Allen, to me, should be on as shaky ground as anybody.
I think he probably is, right?
Yeah. I mean, but the Saints have no appeal to me.
All right, we come back. A player who's going to emerge and a player who's going to take a big downturn. Robbie and Rex Show, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie Rex, 125-106 through the game. Hit us up on the game phone or text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. And also, you can join the YouTube. I did figure out how to get to the YouTube chat, right? I think I'm in the YouTube chat. No, I'm not in the YouTube chat.
You just have to go to the games thing and then fish around, and it's on the. Well, first off, you should just be able to go directly from the Twitter.
Well, I need Keezer to tweet out the YouTube link, and then I can click on it. Keezer, I need you to.
It's tweeted out.
It's tweeted out.
It looks like
This
it's
is
tweeted
a
out.
fantastic boomer edition of. No, see the only YouTube link I see is was the one that was.
Keezer, tweet out the YouTube link.
Help me out, Keezer.
You two have fingers. Go to YouTube. Go to the video stream.
Tweet out the YouTube link.
Come on.
Just obey.
Mm,
You be
come on.
obedient and don't.
I see. I wasn't gonna say that. I was just gonna nicely.
I'm not
say,
a dog.
please.
Yeah, don't say obedient.
Don't tick him off.
Be obedient to the show as Christ was obedient, as the church was obedient to Christ.
All right,
I'm not giving the Caesars
PK.
what is Caesars on this program. I'm sorry.
PK bringing it to different
I
territory.
found it, but right now it says we'll be right back. So it doesn't
Well, yeah.
seem to be
Well, it's-
broadcast.
well,
Now turn
sure.
the broadcast on.
Well, no, it's just a little bit late, right? It's a little bit delayed.
Hit
All
the
right.
live button.
An NFL player who will emerge and a player who will take a downturn in 2024. You want me to go first?
Yeah, but you're going to
Yeah.
take my player.
I am. All right. Well, my emergent play, and look, I wish that I probably should have, found a linebacker or something here.
Yeah,
but
that's not what
but
people are looking
yeah,
for.
I'm talking quarterbacks here, and my emerge is Anthony Richardson, and I'm not saying emerge to stardom, but I like the coaching there. I like what they do offensively. I like what they were doing with him, other than putting him in harm's way, and that's the huge question, right? And they know that. But I think that this year we're going to see his talent start to show, and we're going to start talking about him. I feel like, here we talk about Levis because that's the quarterback here, and you've got everyone in the league talks about Stroud. And obviously it's like, is Trevor Lawrence? I just feel like Anthony Richardson's sort of forgotten about a little bit. At least maybe it just seems like the conversation here. But I think he's a tremendous talent, and that shouldn't be forgotten. Will he put it all together? I don't know. But I think he's going to emerge and at least be one of those guys who on a given week might put 350 and 70 yards rushing on you and make like 3-4 plays that blow your mind. And we'll see if he can find that consistency. I think Shane Steichen's a really good coach, though. So that's my emergent player. My downturn is Aaron Rodgers. Did I take yours?
No,
Okay.
didn't take either of mine.
And maybe I'm wrong, but
I
I just
too.
feel like all this crap
Oh, I think you're right.
and
on
his
Aaron
age
Rodgers.
and the Achilles and all that stuff, I think it's asking a little bit too much to expect him to come in and be even Aaron Rodgers of 2021. I think that you have to expect some reality to set in here, not to mention just all the weird stuff with them and him and Robert Saleh and like this vacation stuff, like Diana Rossini, she's got a new podcast, her and Chase Daniel, and they were talking about this. It's just like it was a totally avoidable controversy, but it becomes a controversy. And it seems like they cannot avoid stepping in it. And I do think that's going to be part of why he's going to be a little bit disappointing this year.
My emerging player accounted for 1,463 yards last year. Can you guess who he is?
1463 accounted for. So that could mean so many different things.
Was universally regarded as underused and ineffective. Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson,
I like it.
while everybody was down on him, largely from a fantasy perspective,
A lot of people down on Arthur Smith, though.
right?
Yeah.
Carried the ball 214 times for 976 yards and 4 touchdowns. Caught 58 passes for 487 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's 1,463 yards. That's not a bad season by any imagination.
He's a talent.
And yet, universally, every NFL fan and media member would tell you he was severely underused. All right. They're going to use him more for sure. And he's going to wind up with more than 1,463 yards. He's going to top 1,000 yards running. He's going to top 500 yards receiving. And that's not going to take him much. That's 25 yards rushing, and it's 13 yards receiving. And it's going to be trumpeted as having a massive year. He's going to emerge more than that, but he's going to have a massive year. He's going to be the central focus of their offense.
You're right. The narrative on that will be more. It'll be more exaggerated than the reality.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
He's
very
major
good.
emerging. I've got secondarily, I've got Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle, who caught 628 last year, but only had 10 yards per reception. And I think he'll do better than that. My drop-off guy, I'm just not big on Jerry Jeudy. I mean, Denver's had Jerry Jeudy on the market for like 2.5 years. He was down to 54 receptions for 758 last year. That's still 14 yards a reception, 2 touchdowns. They couldn't get rid of the guy fast enough. I know there's a cap element to it. And now he's going to a place with a very uncertain quarterback situation where I'm not counting on Deshaun Watson to get him the ball on a regular basis, and where Amari Cooper is your primary target. And I think that Jerry Jeudy's numbers are going to go down.
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting. You think about that, you think about that Alabama team from, let's see, what year would that have been? 2017, 2018, right? Was it? No, it would have been 2018 Alabama, which was probably the most talented passing offense I've ever seen in college football, I think, right? I mean, I think pretty much it's the most unstoppable passing attack I've ever seen. And of course, it was part of why Nick Saban's so great, is that he changed that offense, in a couple of years. You think about that, though. They had Tua, but they had Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith. And Devontae Smith, obviously then ends up winning the Heisman, and he's gone on. He's a very good player. But we know Ruggs, tragic situation. But, Tua and Jeudy, I was certain that all 4 of those guys were going to be big-time stars in the NFL. And as it turns out, it may be,
but it's not.
It's just a little bit. Player. Yeah, it's a little bit underwhelming.
My other potential dip is Barkley, Saquon.
Okay.
He had 3.9 last year with 41 a carry and 41 catches. I think Hurts eats into that. And then what happens in Philly is a guy like Gainwell or Shipley has a little burst in a small role, and then all of a sudden his small role gets bigger because of his success, and things get complicated in the backfield.
Barkley and Derrick Henry this year, fascinating, because I'm bullish on Henry with the Ravens. I love it. I think all last year I'm like, he's got to go to the Ravens. I said it, man. It's just like that scheme and him. I think with Lamar, I think that it's a perfect conflict kind of situation that you put defenses in. But we'll see. And with Barkley, maybe he's diminished now. Maybe the injuries, because that happens too. You can be healthy, but you're just not the same player. And maybe that is the reality with Saquon Barkley. But boy, what a story it would be if he comes in there and just lights it up. Texter on the text line rightly points out to me, you're sitting there talking about Bama 18, and the next year you got Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, with LSU. Yeah. So that is a very fair point. I still think, though, that, and obviously that team won it all, I still think that 18 Alabama team for a stretch, like, it was insane what they were doing. Like, it was like
a little deeper, probably.
I got to go find the column I wrote for the Tennessee, but it was like there was a stat that, like, every time Jerry Jeudy runs a pass route, they gain 5 yards or something like that. It was like, it was I'm going to find this. It was absolutely ridiculous.
I'm going to bet that you can't find it.
Okay, I'm gonna do that during the break. When we come back, it is the best and worst in sports. Robbie and Rex Show 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I believe in miracles. Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
And it is that time, best and worst in sports. We invite your participation on the game text line, driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, 615-737-1025. So I feel weird, like leading the show and then going first. I feel like I should pass that off. I don't think you guys are going to take mine. But most weeks, PK, I go first, and a lot of times I'll take like the obvious low hanging fruit because of course I do. But let's go with Nick Keizer. Nick Keizer, your best and worst in sports.
Sure, why not? All right. Well, excited that training camp's back, so that's one small thing. But I have to start with the NCAA college football game. All right. I'm excited that I get my hands on it finally today. Be later this afternoon when I can go by the store. But I think it is hyped up for a damn good reason. I've had plenty of people give me feedback on it already. Working through the kinks this week as well, because those that got it on Monday, they have been working through a couple of different glitches and whatever. So, but there is that part of me as well that was just excited to get a new console. Also, I've been wanting to do that for a very long time. So finally getting to do that. My worst in sports has got to be Copa America. That
Good call.
was a debacle if I've ever seen one, and that's putting it nicely. I mean, that was a horribly ran event. I kept seeing tweet after tweet after tweet, and obviously what happened in our country was on Twitter as well for days and still is with the shooting, but it's unreal that this also took precedent over a lot of things as well on social media. The cops were busy. They had several calls, and actually most of them were about injuries. A lot of them weren't even about these arrests. They were about injuries. And so that was a horribly ran event. Do better, Miami. That was horrible.
First off, do not go to a stadium if you don't have a ticket. One. B, you have got to find a way to get people in your building for your event on time, period.
Yeah.
I don't care
No doubt.
about who's showing up without tickets or any of that. Gates open. I've proposed this before. I would propose this for the new Nissan Stadium, whose plans are in. The entire downstairs, the entire front-facing outdoor area of the building facing the sidewalk should be gates. There should be no space that's not a gate, so that everyone could get into the building at all times.
Gate. Makes sense. All right, what are you best and worst for you?
Best, I got two, if I may. Paul Skeens starting the All-Star game. All-Star game is hardly what it was, but there was a lot of hype about him, and deservingly so. Particularly, Aaron Judge was batting fourth. People wanted to see that matchup because they haven't faced off. He did walk Juan Soto, which enabled that. It wasn't a big at bat. Judge quickly grounded out to third base. But the Yankees and the Pirates play a series in September. That dulls this in terms of it being a one-time thing, but it was a first-time thing. I thought that was cool. Spain in the Euros, which were much better run than Copa America. Look, soccer's getting duller and duller. Creativity's being coached out of the game. It's very systematic, which is a problem. Spain, it's good that a team that was creative with young players like Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams, who are creative, won it, despite a lot of us rooting for England over here. That's an encouraging development for
Don't
soccer.
speak for me on that. I love seeing England fail again.
Yeah.
Is that bad? Is that bad?
No, that's fine.
Okay, your worst?
Worst I had down the Copa America. My other thing is this Bronny James, who I've seen a lot of highlights on from the Summer League.
Dang you,
on
Kaharski.
Twitter. He's sitting on the perimeter with a lot of opportunities to go to the basket. No. I'm going to sit out here and shoot threes. He has 0.7 made threes for 5.3 attempts. Those are his averages. 12.5%. But I'm just going to sit out here and gun threes. I'm not going to cut to the basket in open space or take a shorter shot. I'm just going to sit out here and gun because I'm a red hot 12.5%.
Well, that's my worst too, but it's a little, and I see Trent on the text line, Bronny James. The whole thing, I more than knocking him, I hate this for him. And he should be going to his sophomore year and getting better, and he's got
get better by going to the basket.
Well, that's fine.
Why doesn't somebody tell him to go to
Well,
the basket?
yeah,
Why don't you bench him when he doesn't go to the basket?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what they are telling them, right? Like, I mean, they
Are they telling him to sit out there and hit less than a three
well,
a
listen,
game?
well, I don't know, but I mean, that is one of his tickets to the league is that he's supposed to be an outside shooter. He's got to be a D and three guy, and right.
He's not getting back on defense either.
He can't hit a shot right now. But I mean, like
He's a joke.
Well, okay, all right, calm down. He's a kid. The bottom line is, you talk about the mental aspects of sports. This is a great example of someone who was like destined to come in the summer league and completely fail, just like a hitter goes through a stretch where you can't see the ball and you're batting 120. That's what he is. He's a guy in a
Whose
terrible
fault is that? The Lakers.
Well, sure.
He's not a 53rd draft pick.
The whole
He's a
thing
scrub.
is the whole thing is ridiculous because he's not that level of player. And to me, what I hate about it is that this is, think about what he has to deal with. I mean, he should be in college getting better. He's a good player.
Daddy set this whole thing up.
I understand
He's
that.
a good player, then he should play well. He's over his head. He should be where he should be. He's not there because of my favorite thing in sports, nepotism.
And my best in sports is Caitlin Clark. Last night, 24 points, 19 assists. That's a record. She scored or assisted on 66 points. That's also a record of the WNBA. Plays 40 minutes more than anybody else, as always. She's 10 for 19 from the floor. She has 6 turnovers, but I'll take a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. I mean, that's the one knock on her. She turns it over too much. Many of her turnovers are teammates not ready for her passes because her passes are fantastic. But she takes too many risks. She's fantastic. She's the rookie of the year, and you watch a full game of what other teams, which is what I would do and what they try to do. They are absolutely hounding her. It is a tremendous amount of stamina required to deal with the beating she takes on a nightly basis. Her career needs to, and this is coaching, they need to look at her like Steph Curry, and they need to use her off the ball way more. She needs to get really good at running off screens and getting shots for herself and not having to take the pounding. And she can still be a creator and passer. I mean, Steph Curry really isn't the point guard of the Golden State Warriors. He's their 2 guard because that's how he's best used. And I hope that happens for her. But in the meantime, it's been fun to watch. And I mean, look, man, it's been great for the WNBA. So that is my best in sports. We've got a few submissions. We've got another vote for best in sports for Spain. I got Mike from Clarksville. All right, let's do a shout out to 11-12 under St. Bethlehem All-Star team going to Warner Robins. So shout out to them. And 11 a.m. on ESPN Plus. So there you go. What else have we got here? Best and worst in sports. I think that's about it. And we're going to get into the Tennessee Titans and a little bit on what they might be doing for the future. The season's about to start, but there is a big possibility in terms of a personnel acquisition that could be on the horizon. Coming up next, Robbie and Rex are 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Second hour here, Thursday edition. Robbie and Rexroad, 102.5, 106 through the game. Joe Rexroad here with Paul Kuharsky in for Robbie, Nick Keyser, intern Colin. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we're going to get into Titans' future, but not like next week future, PK. I've got to get you on this because as I mute myself mid-sentence.
Hop into the YouTube chat, people. I just popped in there. So.
Oh, okay. There you go. We got the YouTube chat, and you also have the there you go. Paul Kuharsky says greetings. Also have the game and the phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, which is 615-737-1025. But T. Higgins on the horizon, PK. T. Higgins is he's playing on the tag this year, and there's no extension right now. And I mean, you know, I guess he could be tagged again next year, but I think there's a possibility if the Titans are so inclined that he could be the guy, you know, basically after Hopkins, right? I mean, he could be the guy to take Hopkins' place in theory, but that would also mean you are paying T. Higgins, whatever you're paying him, no small fee, along with already now paying Calvin Ridley. Is this of interest to you? Do you feel like this is something that down the line should be pursued by the Titans? There are other options.
It's of interest to me for them to get a big-time wide receiver next year. I don't think it needs to be T. Higgins. It could be T. Higgins. I think a year into this thing, maybe Brian Callahan's pre-existing relationship with T. Higgins is more valuable. He says, I still really need a guy that I know. My knowledge of T. Higgins is more of a guarantor than some other things. But, you know, if CD Lamb gets to free agency, if Brandon Ayuk, who's demanding a trade now, which is dangerous for him, I wouldn't want to be on the Commanders instead of the 49ers. If he gets to free agency, those guys are equally, if not more, intriguing, as is a high draft pick. You know, if Luther Burden is in range, or some of these other guys, McMillan or Egbuka, whoever rises to be high, and look, the wide receiver crop is going to be great every year now based on how college football goes.
Some ups and downs, but
even a down year at wide receiver is going to include some very good wide receivers. So I think wide receiver is going to be a priority for the Titans next year. They're going to seek to get younger. Tyler Boyd is only a 1-year contract, and you don't know what you're going to get out of him this year and where his price goes from there, depending on how he does. You don't know what's going to happen with DeAndre Hopkins. I think we all expect good things, but you cannot say for sure. I think it will be a position that's in somewhat flux next year. But I think the dot connecting between Callahan and T. Higgins is a little bit too easy. And T. Higgins will have other quarters if he bounces back. Now,
sure.
He wasn't hurt so much as other people were hurt. He did miss 5 games last year and was down to 656 yards. So he was hurt after 2,000-yard seasons. But even hurt, averaged 15.6 yards per reception, which is a number you've got to like.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, well, look, the Callahan thing is just, it's a natural edge potentially.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is, of course, what Callahan thinks of him, right? He had some very productive years. You know, a guy like him, I do a little bit look at and say, how much do you benefit from having one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in the league on the other side of the field? How much does that help you? You know, but I think I think it's a possibility. I'm with you. There are guys you could draft. Do you think that there's any thought at all about giving Hopkins another year before or is it 100% they're going to play this year out and then
I don't
See
know.
what
There might
happens.
be some thought. I wouldn't. I would wait and see. I just think with a receiver over 30, you wait and see.
He is different, though.
He is
as we've
different.
discussed.
He is different, but I would still wait and see.
Yeah, and that's where I wouldn't. I mean, I like the idea of if you can get something reasonable. I mean, because if you're him, it's like, what's he making this
There
year?
was no
13?
interest in him last year. Yeah.
No, I know.
He's going to have played
And
2 more seasons.
Teams were wrong.
after teams having no interest in him, and teams were wrong. But if you had no interest
And I
in him
don't
2
blame
years
him.
ago, two more years of wear and tear on him, I don't think as a, what's he going to be, 33-year-old, that there's going to be a great deal of interest in him again. And I think he'll have a
you're
leg up.
right. I think you're right, except that if he has another year where he plays the entire season, he produces like last year, I think some of those teams, first of all, are going to be like, man, we blew that, right? And I think there'll be a reasonable amount of interest
I
in
think
a
there'll be a
play like that, because again,
reasonable amount of
he
interest.
is one of those guys who here and there you get those guys who just defy their age. And we'll see.
I agree, but I don't think he's a first week free agent for most teams.
That's
So
fine.
the Titans would still be in the driver's seat if they're going to give him some form of security early, after the season, before free agency opens, or at the beginning of free agency, where other teams would be like, I like DeAndre Hopkins, but let's look at the younger options first. Or let's think about a draft pick first, which I think a lot of teams would do.
Well, they need to have a drafted receiver who comes in and develops, of course. And this is, of course, as we've talked about, big year for Treylon Burks. What about the slot
You also need to
position?
see how leadership develops in that group out of what they have. How's Ridley handle that role? What does Boyd bring to it? And what do you want to carry over into next year there? And how much is Hopkins crucial in that area?
Yeah.
On top of his production.
Yeah. I think,
What's the value added there?
I think,
I think the
Boyd-
value added is significant, but what's the value lost there if he's not back?
So Boyd is this team's slot receiver. What about Jackson and Phillips in terms of right now? I'm not asking you for your whole 53, but right now, as you look at the receiver room in particular.
I don't see how Phillips makes the roster if Jackson is what they expected when they drafted him. And I thought Jackson looked reasonably good during the offseason. You can't carry 3 slot receivers.
Right. And this
and
is the
when,
guy they
when
picked.
none of those slot
Phillips is
receivers
not the
are
guy they
doing
picked.
anything on special teams outside of being a return option, I can't see how Kyle Phillips can be a return option again. I mean, I'm sure they'll give him a clean slate, and I'm pretty confident he'll screw it up based on his history of screwing it up. I mean, I don't know how Kyle Phillips turns into a reliable punt option now, and he should be behind Jackson. So Jackson would have to screw it up first to open a door for Kyle Phillips. Kyle Phillips is a wonderful a practice player who's not made it onto the field. And I just don't see how he makes the roster.
It's interesting because he did make it on the field at Pittsburgh and look pretty good, right? And you're like, okay, there's some of what you see in practice, but
Now, I do think if he
limited
found
glimpses.
a way to make the roster, that he would be better used. Look, I touted when he came off IR last year. Here's what the Titans need. This guy's going to be a difference maker for them. Short area quickness is just what they need. 3rd and 4, this guy's going to get to 5 and be an option for Will Levis. And then they did not use him like that at all. It was as if they were confused by what they had. And the guy we see at practice who gets open on that underneath stuff on a regular basis and shakes people and gets us all excited was not used that way by Tim Kelly or Mike Vrabel or the staff for whatever reason.
Or he didn't
It
get the
seemed
ball.
like it really, I think it was more that they didn't use him that way than him not getting the ball.
yeah. Okay, so you've got the receiver room. You've obviously got Ridley, Hopkins, Boyd. Jaquan Jackson, I'm with you. That's the guy
Well,
they
the third or
picked.
fourth would be Burks.
Burks.
NWI 5th.
Okay, so Jaquan Jackson. Now you're at
Jaquan
6.
Jackson is 6.
If I've
And
this
that I
certainly
would draw a
this
line
certainly
there.
feels like a 6, a receiver room of 6 with this offense, right?
I
mean,
would draw a line there, and then you got some competition with Phillips, who I think's very unlikely. Kearis Jackson, who's another guy who kind of fits that same role. He would be the 4th slot. I don't think he's got much of a chance. Harrison, is an outsider.
You got Dowell coming off the ACL.
Dowell's on PUP. He's not close. He hurt himself in the second to last game, I think, with the ACL. If we see him, it'll be very late in the season, and because they've got room for him, he could miss the entire year. We missing anybody there?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody who's a serious contender there, to play. So we come back. We will talk more Titans receivers. Robbie and Rex are 102.5, 106.3 the game. Welcome back in. Robbie Rex, 102.5, 106 to the game. All right, let's give some tickets away. What do you say? Eh? Nick Keyser with a shrug.
You
All
go
right,
ahead.
I'll think that's
Caller
a shrug.
number 9.
Are you okay with caller number 9? All right, he says he's fine.
Yes,
John Fogerty,
that away.
August 7th, First Bank Amphitheater. These tickets will be emailed to you by the promotion staff Monday. So we'll do it. We'll do caller number 9 for John Fogerty. Play Fortunate Son. Well, I definitely want to hear some good CCR out of John Fogerty. All right, I found this real quick, PK. I found this column, okay, from the Tennessean, from my days at the Tennessean, Knoxville, Tennessee, October 20th, 2018, okay? Basically writing, I mean, the headline is like, it's over for college football, Alabama's, and of course that year they blew it and lost to Clemson in the title game. So I was wrong, but listen to this stat. I found this we were talking about Jerry Jeudy, okay? And like all the ridiculous, like that day ended with Tua, like his quarterback rating is like 248. He had a TD to pick ratio of 25-0 after that game. But listen to this. Jerry Jeudy came into that game averaging 4.6 yards per pass route run. Okay. 27 yards a catch. Yeah, that's fine. You know, that's okay. 27 yards a catch. Sure. 4.6 yards per pass. So on a series when he runs 2 pass routes, you're getting a first down. I find that to be one of the most ridiculous stats I've ever heard. And I don't have a great context for it. Like what's the average? I've never even seen a stat like that, but I'm just saying that's how ridiculous they were. But the texter earlier was right. You then follow that up the next year with LSU and what they had going on, even another level. And of course, in terms of NFL impact, big edge to LSU. So talking about the Titans receiving core, but also Titans, you wanted to talk PK. Titans have made a change in the organization.
Well,
someone who's been there long time.
They announced yesterday that Ralph Ockenfels, who joined the team in 1998 as director of marketing, has retired. 26 years with the franchise, 34 years in the league. He was with the Packers previously. So he most recently was vice president of business development. He's been vice president of corporate sponsorships. He's been vice president of marketing, broadcasting, and digital rights. Burke Nihill called him a legend and said he's on the Mount Rushmore of Titans business executives. He was involved in the uniform reveal, which was such a big success down on Broadway.
Yep.
He was involved in the draft, which was such a success. He was involved in I think all 3 stadium naming rights deals. Most recently, he's been involved in raising a ton of money for the Titans Foundation, that Hall of Greats that's in a concourse at Nissan Stadium, which is a pretty cool interactive thing. It was his pet project, I think, and heavily involved in Titans All Access, the TV show. This is a guy who was here from the beginning. Super high, energetic guy. If you've ever met
Relentlessly nice guy.
yeah, if you've ever met him, you would remember him. Donated his kidney to his mom, I think, along the way, and was involved with the local National Kidney Foundation. So a super terrific guy. Wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all his fine work, and to say I fear this is another example of the Titans probably squeezing out somebody who's been a lifelong heart and soul member of their front office as they become more corporate. I have good cause to believe that's the case. I think he's my age, your age, somewhere in his
You're way older than me, but keep going.
early to mid 50s. I don't know. Maybe they paid him very handsomely and he's in a fantastic position to be able to retire. Most guys in their early and mid 50s are not in position to retire, no matter how well they've done working for an NFL franchise. And so if that's the case, I feel very badly for him. I think the Titans have treated him very nicely going out. Jim Wyatt wrote a very nice piece, so he's treated better going out than Stuart Spears was, who just dropped off the masthead. But guys like that did so much for the fabric of this organization. I don't understand the exit strategy the Titans have for them. So either way, Ralphie, and I've texted with him, and he's certainly not saying anything like that. He going out with all of his charm and pizzazz and enthusiasm and gratefulness. Wish you the best. Hope to see you around. Hope to have lunch with you soon. And it won't be the same to not run into you in the hallways and get the super enthusiastic handshake that he always gave. And I hope that the Titans, as they bring in people to replace Ralph Ockenfels, let them develop relationships with the media the way that somebody like Ralph did. In my experience, they don't. It's a kind of an antiseptic place now where these people are cordoned off, and we don't know. You could speak to this. Those people who are now lifeblood of the franchise people. And I don't think that's great for the organization that the new Ralph Ockenfelses are walled off, and we have no idea what they do or who they are or how they function or what the organization means to them and everything. And the Titans are far from the most corporate team in the league, but they're a hell of a lot more corporate than they used to be.
And that's the league. But
Yeah.
I would more so the Titans, no doubt about it. In 8 years, I would absolutely agree with that. Adam in Portland on the phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. What's up, Adam?
He's 57, Ralph, by the way.
Hey, I'm waiting for
Adam.
Hey, do we have Adam in Portland?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
All right, Joe. So, yeah, you were talking about the receivers, dude. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about the 2021 season where we kind of botched Josh Reynolds, if you'll remember that. He wanted out. We ended up getting rid of him because we were like, oh, we got AJ and we got Julio. Next thing you know, Julio's hurt. AJ stays hurt. And then we're playing dudes, Marcus Johnson, Mason Kenzie's getting reps, Cam Batson, all these dudes that had no business being on the field. So when I hear PK going through the roster and he's like, I don't even know if this – I mean, I agree right now. I don't think Kyle Phillips makes the team, but, like, he could be important in 3 weeks. Like, especially – I mean, I don't know. I'm interested to see if everybody in Chicago gets hurt because Vrabel's there. Like, I wonder if Vrabel's doing something. Like, I don't know if it's his fault. Probably not. But, like, I'm looking
Cleveland,
to see
you mean,
if we
not
could actually
Chicago.
keep guys healthy. And if we're going to have to lean on some of these dudes PK's talking about, probably won't make the team.
Well, first off, if you think Vrabel's got a big enough role in Cleveland to go get involved in getting people hurt, as if he was responsible for getting people hurt here in the first
He's
place,
probably going to hit a few people.
that's a pretty good stretch. Josh Reynolds had no interest in being here. As soon as they got Julio Jones, he was like, well, they're knocking me down the pecking order. Screw that. Went through the motions.
He got hurt, too.
Was not a
And he was hurt.
professional, and he had no interest in being here. And I can tell you, they made it sound like it was a mutual release to make Josh Reynolds look good. It wasn't a mutual release. They wanted Josh Reynolds out. Josh Reynolds screwed them over. And the fact that Josh Reynolds could go to Detroit and be a good player showed you just how much Josh Reynolds screwed them over. And it was another misread of the love ball factor by Mike Vrabel and John Robbins.
100%. Well, let me ask you this then, PK. I'm not saying, because this is a stupid statement to say Mike Vrabel gets people hurt. I will be interested to see how healthy our team is with a new coaching staff. I'll just say that too. Like that was a big deal, man. You set the record 2 years in a row. Like, it's important. That's an important piece of this team is, can you stay healthy?
Yeah, well, we've got a topic coming on that, but I don't think Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff have anything to do with Kyle Phillips' inability to stay healthy. I think Kyle Phillips is a fragile guy.
Thank you, Adam. And yeah, we've talked about that. We, like you said, you got some interesting stuff coming up on specific guys coming in and health statuses. But I can't. I was arguing against this for year over year on guys. Look, people pull hamstrings. People twist their ankle. They sometimes, unfortunately, plant wrong in a field and they tear an ACL. They get a shoulder. This league is built to destroy bodies. But I also, Adam's right. They set the record, and obviously they've been searching for answers. So I'm very interested too to see. They certainly have changed things. How much does that matter? I think player acquisition was an under-discussed part of those issues.
Absolutely.
Like
and look, they're going to manage workloads even more, manage practices even more. And then we're going to hear from some guys who see highlights on Twitter and say, my God, they look soft. They're not doing anything. I think at 2:00 you're going to hear, I saw tape from practice today and they're playing patty cakes out there.
By the way,
do you want them hurt?
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to hear the other side of it.
Sure. There's always, whatever it is, you're gonna hear the other side. By the way, Jared texted me yesterday and said he enjoys hearing 3 hours of you complaining about him. I'm like, well, we've gone an hour and a half. The first mention is Stilly. All right, we come back. We're gonna switch gears a little bit.
If he's on vacation and listening to us, he's got some problems.
Oh, he loves it. I think he listens to every word. We're going to get into Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt baseball real quick. I talked to him this week, and it was a very interesting conversation, and I want to get PK's thoughts on that and where that program is. Quickly, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. The Game Summer Ticket Tour is back. Join our own Joe Dubin at Yazoo Brewing Company, 900 River Bluff Drive in Madison this Thursday, that's today, from 4 to 6 as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, including Def Leppard, Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and more. Also, get signed up for the grand prize tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rexroad. 102.5, 106 through The Game. Paul Kuharsky in for Robbie Stanley. And PK, I want to get we've talked a little college baseball with you in the past, but this week I went over to Vanderbilt and I sat down with Tim Corbin as he had a break during his camp. They're doing their camp this week.
Camp, which I failed to get
youth
my
camp.
son in.
You failed, like you
Well,
late,
just
too
never,
late.
Yeah, never paid attention to the deadlines.
You
and
done it
stuff.
before, though?
I will be making sure that I don't miss the deadline next year.
He has been in it before.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got to do that because I think
Yeah.
Corbin does the slip and slide at the end too. Kids love that. But look, it's a really tough time right now for Tim Corbin. It's you're talking about the longest stretch of not getting to the second weekend since the aughts. You're talking about Tennessee winning it all. The sport has been flipped upside down. And I think for a coach like him in particular, at a place like he works in particular, some of these changes are more challenging than for other coaches in other places. And so I had the question, I guess the prevailing question is, how do you navigate this? And also, how motivated are you to navigate it?
No question about his motivation
Yeah.
to navigate it. He's going to stay in ball as long as he can. And I would think, based on the sound of it, like when the day comes that he retires at Vanderbilt, he's going to go coach like 17-year-olds or 13-year-olds or whatever. Ball is in his blood.
It's really interesting because, look, a year ago, I could see Corbin maybe just being like, yeah, I don't want to deal with it. But like Nick Saban just did. And he brought that up. Other coaches have gotten out. I mean, Maggie Corbin did a piece of their last year, and the quote was, this could be the end of us, talking about NIL, talking about the portal, right? So
he's not willing to wave that flag. And here's what struck me about what he said in your interview with him. First off, he said, we hold standards and values that we've had for a long time, and we want to do that, but stay within the system that we have. That to me is a Vanderbilt mission statement that you wish could apply to the whole school. That's what you wish the football team was saying, but the football team hasn't had any success to be able to say that. Right. People will hate this comparison, but I was up at Columbia a couple weekends ago, visiting with my core group of friends because one of their oldest sons now is, hopefully on the radar to play soccer at Columbia. Well, Columbia has 3 good programs now: men's tennis, women's basketball, and baseball. Those 3 coaches are like friends with each other. And while they operate within the scheme of the athletic department, which is not good, they also know, like, hey, the 3 of us are the ones. We hope there will be other ones that come, but they kind of have their own
little club,
their own little clique. Like, hey, we get it. We're making it work in this difficult framework. And that's kind of what Corbin is over there, and the bowling coach, and maybe 1 or 2 others. Not that they're cliquey that way, but there are a couple who are making it work inside a difficult athletic framework.
But he's the one. You're right. But he's the one who, in a sport where
right,
it's harder to do it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. So he's the model. You wish everybody could be talking the way he's talking. He talks about the NIL and the end of amateurism and all of that stuff is sloppily done and not humanistically done, pulling kids away from growth periods and the effect that the COVID period had and all of that. And Paul Skeens and Brandon Montgomery, guys he had a chance at maybe. But really, he's not going to pay a kid $800,000. He's not going to pay travel expenses for the family. He's not going to pay incentives, which are things that he's lost kids to. Now, it's not quite basketball-like because you need more kids than basketball. But I've long said you should be able to win in basketball at Vandy. It's small enough where you could go find the kind of kids that can come to Vandy, be academically successful, and give you 12 kids you could win with. And I think reading this and before this, I thought Corbin may not be able to get Skeens and Brandon Montgomery, but I think that he can get 15 kids. I don't know how big a program is, but 15, 18 are enough to put together a program that can contend for a national championship based on his resume and their history, who are MLB prospects, who are good enough, who are willing to come and be real students and do the things. So he might miss out on some of the guys that he really wants and can't convince to do those things. But there are those guys out there who will do those things, and he can find them. And maybe they have to be rich kids, who will turn away bigger NIL things. Maybe they have to be, I don't know, they have to be a certain kind of kid. But that's not a different thing at Vanderbilt. Now, maybe it's a different kind of thing for him because for a while he didn't have to have the pool was bigger for him. And now the pool has gotten smaller like it is for most coaches at Vanderbilt. But if I had to pick somebody that I trust to be able to weed through that, it's him.
Yeah, it's obviously changed a lot. They had some advantage, though it's been grossly exaggerated by other fan bases and other coaches with the need-based aid, right? So that helped them make up the difference with some kids who had economic need. That's the thing. It's need-based aid. And they had that at Vanderbilt at the university, not just the program. So they were able to have some kids get more money for scholarships than other schools could provide. Although need-based aid, by the way, is not confined to Linda Vanderbilt. I can go on about this. It's been way exaggerated, but obviously you get into this era, and basically SEC teams now, I mean, they're all on full scholarship now. That's one thing that NIL is. It's basically, okay, fill in the scholarship money for the most part. I know that there was one Tennessee player that I talked to this year who, and it was Stamos who pitched for them, who did not get that. But if you're a key player for an SEC or like a major baseball program now, the partial scholarship thing's pretty much over. You're going to be on a full ride. So then you go from there. Then what do you get beyond that? Corbin, as you said, talked about $800K for one season. I mean, that is a big number in baseball. Now in football, you've got quarterbacks who are
easily getting that.
Oh no, who are getting getting multiple millions a year at the highest level of college quarterback. But a singular baseball player, $800K, asking for $800K plus travel expense. Think about what travel expenses could add up to. What are we talking?
If it's a kid,
are we talking about your uncle too? Like who we that and like incentives? That's wild. Now, as Corbin also says in this interview, and we've talked about, and it has to be, it's going to get to, I think, some form of labor management and contracts. And if you get to actual contracts like that, you could have incentives for a college player. I mean, why not? Right. But right now it's like, I think, Corbin is like a lot of coaches. He just says what a lot of coaches won't say. I mean, a lot of coaches would not want to say what he said in this interview because it's like people are going to use that against me and all this stuff. And so I give him credit for that.
But they also have to. You have to go to school at Vanderbilt.
Well, that's right.
So Skeens left Air Force where he was flying and thinking about military life to go to LSU. Why? To focus strictly on baseball and do a lot less academics.
And
fair?
So, sure. And you get
and Montgomery left Stanford to go where? To
Texas
A&M. To go to Texas A&M, right. Another state school where he could be more focused on baseball.
Yeah.
All right.
And
well, you can be
I don't
focused
begrudge
on
either move at all. Right.
Right. So he's not going to get that guy unless he gets him from the beginning and he's committed to what they're doing at Vanderbilt.
Right.
Now, can you find 18 guys who are doing that at Vanderbilt and willing to hold off on the money and take the payoff of being part of the Vanderbilt program and being attached to Vanderbilt instead of being attached to LSU or Texas A&M? I think so. But I come from the kind of background where that would appeal to me.
Right.
Are there enough kids that would appeal to in the country? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And that's the thing. What you want is obviously you want the Skeens and the Braden Montgomery to be with you from the start. Then because they are getting, they're very difficult academic schools there. Right. And so they can do that. They did it. They succeeded at it. And then you want them with you and then maybe
now, can he hold on to them the way Air Force and Stanford couldn't hold
Yeah.
on to them? That's the question.
but if you get 3 years, you still, or
Right.
whatever you get.
But do you think he could have held on to them? I don't know.
I don't know. It's situational.
Now, he
but-
almost got Montgomery, you said.
They were in on Montgomery. My understanding is Montgomery and Skeens certainly were possibilities for coming to Vanderbilt. So
All right. So as long as he's in on those guys, his hit rate maybe goes down, but maybe they're not in on it every year, but they're, not in on College World Series potential winning every year, but they'll cycle to have their chances.
yeah, I mean this last draft cycle, they kept a lot of their recruiting class, which has been a huge. They had 2 straight recruiting classes that were just pillaged by the draft, and that's the thing. If you want to recruit at the highest level, and Vanderbilt's had a lot of those classes, number 1, number 2 in the country, like Tennessee does right now. Well, the draft is going to start infringing on your
and what's
talent.
your plan B? How does that work? I'm not really familiar with that. I mean,
See,
you
the plan
can't really
B
have
now
a plan B.
Well, the plan B now is the portal,
Portal.
right? Yeah, I
and
mean,
is he active in the portal?
yeah, I mean they've gotten some kids. I'm actually gonna get into that in my rant, but they did have a huge development. Jonathan Vastine, shortstop, really good player, is coming back, and he was a draft that they got some kids who were coming back, and that's what he said in the interview too. It's like you got to have some seniors who don't quite like where they go in that draft after their 3rd year, and they're like, okay, I'm going to come back. And that's where NIL for all these schools. I mean, Tennessee football, Amari Thomas is a very good player. Before all this stuff, he's in the NFL and he might be a 4th or 5th round pick, right? I mean, I think he's going to play in the NFL. He's going to be a rotational guy in the NFL, and he would have been a middle round pick. Well, he's coming back to Tennessee because I promise you he's getting paid well to do it. And you don't have to go and try to be a 4th or 5th round pick. But the same thing is true in baseball, right? If you're drafted way low in the draft, now you're that valuable to that particular program. Okay, well, we'll pay you, $200K or whatever it is to come back. I'm just giving you hypotheticals. And now you come back for your senior year. There's more, obviously, incentive to come back for some of these guys.
Well, I'll tell you now, if Ravenwood's Simon Kuharski develops as he dreams and gets a Vanderbilt scholarship, he will give 3 years.
There we go. Okay.
Probably 4.
You're on the record. Simon Kuharski. You are not signing the
2008
right out of high
second
school with the Yankees. All right, that's fine. You're on the record. All right, we come back. I am going to rant related to this Vanderbilt baseball. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie and Rexroad.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
Welcome back to the Fat and Bald Show. See us more now.
I'm finally unmuted. I swear I kept clicking the button.
It's so fun to hear you try to be hip.
Hey, welcome to the Rex Rant with a little Michigan State fight song from Nick Keyser. Because as I put on the board, I'm actually ranting about Michigan State baseball. But more than that, I'm ranting about something. It's Vanderbilt related too. So let's break this
played
down.
Against a youth team, a 14U team that wore the Michigan State logo.
Little Spartan head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spartan head.
It's a good logo. So, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you know. It's no Columbia Lions logo.
Older than the nation itself.
That's pretty good. So, talking about Tim Corbin and Vanderbilt baseball, one big development for people who follow the program closely. The biggest portal ad he made was Joseph Dwierza, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly.
Sure.
From
Just say it
Michigan,
confidently.
from from Michigan State, left-handed pitcher, a guy who has the stuff to be potentially Vanderbilt's Friday starter. And so that was a big story. And he's added some other kids in the portal, by the way. They are active in the portal. They're doing the portal. Look, 2 years ago, talk about, by the way, we were talking about the academics. So they got RJ Schreck, really good player out of Duke, who came to Vanderbilt and was very good. I mean, he was a key add to the lineup. So Joseph Zerwa, I think that's the better way to say it, commits to Vanderbilt and then decommits and decides to go back to Michigan State. So Tim Corbin did shed some light on this when I talked to him about, essentially, it sounds like there were some people talking him into getting into the portal when he really didn't want to leave Michigan State. And so that's fine. But I've talked to some people up there, and there's a financial component to this too, as there should be. If I were him, if I were his parents, if there are people willing to pay you to go somewhere, then it's just like if you're potentially leaving a job, then you'd expect your current employer to step up and at least match, if not exceed, right? So my understanding is that there was a financial step up from Michigan State to keep him there. Along with, again, Corbin believes he really never wanted to leave in the first place. So that's all fine. Corbin has no hard feelings. He goes back to Michigan State. Good for him. Let me just say, if I were a booster who gives money to Michigan State athletics, and I see the state of a football program that is in the midst of a coaching change, I see Tom Izzo trying to get back to the top of the sport, and he's another guy who, like Corbin, is kind of outspoken, not afraid to say how much he hates this place right now. And I look at one of my fellow boosters giving, I don't know, I mean, I think it's fair to say hundreds of thousands to keep a baseball player. Do you know how irrelevant baseball is at Michigan State? Do you know how relevant baseball is in the Big Ten? Forget Michigan State. It doesn't exist. It's not the same sport. No one cares. Like, I would disassociate myself from this booster. If I would try to disassociate this booster from athletics, or say, look, do you understand that the programs that people care about, like hockey, which is very good now, there's the program that people care about, that you fill a hockey arena and it's a big deal in the Big Ten. We're giving this kind of money for freaking baseball? What are you doing? It's insane to me. The Big Ten does not play baseball at the same level of the SEC. It's a different sport. Randomly, you'll get a team like Indiana. You got Michigan through. I understand. 5 years ago, Michigan got to the final. But then they fell apart. Their coach left for Clemson because no one cares about baseball in the Big Ten. Relative to the SEC, it does not exist. It just blows my mind. So that is my rant. This booster at Michigan State has gone rogue. Bless you, Kuharski. And I would be furious if I was someone up there who was trying to get the programs that people care about going, that this money is diverted to this.
I'll be devil's advocate.
Okay.
The guy's a baseball guy. He wants to see his school be better at baseball. He wants to see a Big Ten team nose in on the big boys at baseball.
But I don't think that they're going to at all.
Well, he wants to find out.
I mean, you're just finding out with one player with whatever the money. I mean, I've heard an amount. I'm not going to say the amount I've heard because I
It's
second
a
hand.
Friday night starter, you said?
But it's significant.
Friday night starter?
Yeah.
He wants to go on Friday nights and watch this kid pitch
I mean,
and whistle. Maybe he'll start whistling.
yeah, well, there you go. The Michigan State Wizards. That's the thing. They built a really nice little stadium there. I mean, Jake Boss, a good coach. It's again, they're in the Big Ten terms, they're a fine program. But even building the
But it's
stadium,
cold.
it's McLean Stadium, by the way. Same guy who built Baylor's McLean Stadium. He's an alum
This
of
guy
both
can't
of
pick
those.
a school.
Well, he went
Got a
one
graduate degree or
undergrad and
something?
one and he's a billionaire. So whatever, leave the guy alone. But you do all that, and it's still like you can't have a competitive baseball program when you can't play outside for like more than the last 3 weeks of the season. Like that's why it just doesn't exist.
Well, what this guy
is
should be doing
completely
is
different world.
donating money for an indoor venue. That's what he needs to do if he really wants to compete.
An indoor baseball stadium.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Let's have an indoor college baseball stadium. No, you would be
If
really
he really
good.
wants
Yeah.
to step it up
Sure.
and see them compete.
No, that would make all the difference. Oh my goodness.
SEC schools would be flooding there to play.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is amazing. I've said this before, but like when I came down here, well, it's been 8 years, right? More than
Is that
8
all?
years. It's been more than 8
God,
years.
Nashville feels like it's been a
Yeah,
lot
it feels
longer
like
than that.
decades. I know. I was like, oh, you guys like are really, really into this college baseball, huh? No kidding. And I love it.
8 years
Like,
ago, I don't know how into it we were. I mean, Vandy.
Sure. Corbin had they had just won the title 2 years earlier.
That goes fast.
Yeah, well, you're a hater. You're
Well,
a college
also,
baseball hater.
yeah, I
anyway.
don't love
You're,
it.
Yeah, you're.
I hate bad umpiring for starters.
Well, there's plenty of that in your
And I
beloved
don't
Major
like
League
them
Baseball.
all yelling at each other constantly. That's not my
You don't
style
like
of
the
baseball.
chanting and whatnot.
I don't like a
in the
pitcher
dugouts?
striking a guy out that has to emphasize that he struck the guy out by pumping his fist at him as he leaves the
That
field. But
happens in Major League Baseball.
not to nearly
Not
the
as
same
much.
degree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're kids.
Well,
They're
you
enthusiastic
strike a guy
kids.
out. What you've done is you've accomplished something by striking him out. By pumping your fist at him, it doesn't add anything to the strikeout. The strikeout has occurred.
So if Simon,
victory is
Simon makes a great play and he pumps his fist or shows some enthusiasm, you immediately throw cold water on that.
Generally behaves himself, comports himself, as I'm sure you tell your son to do it, as if he's done it before.
My son has some enthusiasm. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes maybe a little too much. But you know what? You talk if it's a little bit over, you talk about it. Other than that, you just
He gets fired up. He's not chirping at other people's dugouts like some people do, which is not acceptable in our organization.
the Koharski organization.
The Nashville Select
Oh, gotcha.
organization.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. We come back. We're going to get back on the Titans. Kuharski has some, if healthy, designations ready for camp here. Robbie and Rex are 102.5, 106.3 the game. Third and final hour of the Thursday edition of Robbie and Rex Show here, 102.5, 106 through the game. Paul Kuharski in for Robbie. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we're going to get back into the Titans here after a little college baseball break. PK, you have written more on the Titans. You were writing a lot on the Titans at paulkuharski.com. And injuries, health, these are big things. These are always things in an NFL training camp for an NFL team. What have you discovered about the Tennessee
I pledged
Titans?
to do this yesterday to kind of go through the depth chart, because how many guys do we talk about and we say, if healthy, if healthy, if healthy? And so I thought it would make sense to kind of go through the key guys on this team who we talk about, who we say if healthy, and discuss these guys. I try to put them kind of in order. Now look, anybody can get hurt. We know that. And some of these guys are going to get hurt. And some of these guys with injury histories are qualified differently. And so we'll add the nuance to that. And number one is Jamal Adams. I hope Jeff Simmons isn't listening, because I'll get blocked. I mean,
you just want to get blocked so badly.
No,
You're
I
so
don't.
jealous, aren't you?
I don't.
You're
He's had
jealous
severe
of
injury
Stilly.
struggles in the last 4 years. He's missed 24 of his last 39 games. Now, that's a massive, massive injury loss. I think he spent almost a year on crutches with no weight on this leg after his most recent knee injury. So Jamal Adams can help this team if healthy, as a blitzing safety, as a big nickel against tight ends, as a dime linebacker. But we might not see any of it if he hurts himself again. Traylon Burks.
It's interesting that you started with him, because I still look at him as, not a hugely important player this year, but I mean, you're not wrong.
I don't think he's hugely important, but I think he can.
You're not going in order of importance here.
But he could be a factor on this team if healthy. Traylon Burks, a factor if healthy. He's missed 12 of a possible 34 games. Toe injury, concussion, groin injury, knee injury, and another concussion. How nice would it be if the Titans actually had this complete wide receiving core, and Traylon Burks developed into some version of what they imagined when they drafted him to be part of replacing A.J. Brown? He's got some limitations. It takes him some time to get up to speed, but he can get downfield and do some things when healthy, if healthy. He's one of these guys, and there are some guys on this list who we've gotten beyond the point of expecting to be healthy. I think most Titans fans, most Titans media expect him not to be healthy. Expect that there will be a day at practice in the coming weeks where something happens to Traylon Burks. A hamstring, a knee, a concussion, God forbid. But something's going to happen to Traylon Burks is the prevailing wisdom. Kyle Phillips, I don't think makes the roster. We talked about this earlier. He's right now ranks third in the slot, I would say, to Tyler Boyd, who's going to be there 80% of the time. Jaquan Jackson, a draft pick that they obviously like for the position and like as the punt returner. You're not going to keep three guys who are slot-specific receivers. Kyle Phillips, a terrific practice player who does really impressive things in short areas with his quickness. Was not used, I don't think, properly when he was available by the previous staff. Maybe this staff loves him and finds a way to keep him on the roster, but he's got to be healthy. And this guy has had shoulder, hamstring, knee, and hamstring injuries. Those and the subsequent loss of the punt returner job that left him inactive for some games where he was healthy means he's played only 13 of 34 games. Can't play 13 of 34 games and be a guy who's going to be a factor. Can't do that and be a guy who's going to be on the roster. L'Jarius Sneed hasn't missed a lot of games. He's missed a lot of practice. And so you're rooting for him to be a guy who's managed on a regular basis in a way that he can appear on game day, which is what Rand Carthon basically said when they traded for him. We're willing to accept missed practices in order for him to be ready to play on Sundays, because when he's played in games for the Chiefs, he's been an excellent player. And we're trading for that excellent player, and we'll take what comes with having to get him ready to play in the games to be an excellent player. Does that devolve into something more where the knee that's problematic keeps him out of games in addition to keeping him out of practices? That's something we're all keeping an eye on, right? That's something that you have to worry about. L'Jarius Sneed's a great player if healthy. Amani Hooker, team's number one safety. We've talked over and over about what's going on next to him with Molden, with Adams, with the hope of Justin Simmons later, with his price coming down, with the hope of Condre Diggs maybe being a late addition. Last 3 years, Hooker's missed time with a groin, a concussion, a shoulder, and a knee. Missing stretches of 6 games, 3 games, 3 games, 2 games, and another game here and there along the way. His durability, huge factor for the Titans. Because I think if you lose Amani Hooker, you're in real trouble at the back end.
Yeah, imagine this secondary in a given Sunday without Sneed and Hooker, which is a very real possibility at some point this year.
Changes the complete face of the team. Chidobe Awuzie missed 7 games because of a hamstring injury in 2020 and 9 in 2022 with a torn ACL. So he's 2 years removed from the serious injury. There's a much better position for the Titans with the ACL guy than they've had recently. We've seen guys in their first year back from ACL, Robert Woods, Taylor Lewan, Harold Landry, and you've had to wait for those guys to emerge from that, which takes half a season or more.
Yeah, Landry was pretty good, but yes.
Landry was
you want that
good.
next year.
Lewan got hurt again. Woods wasn't anything special. So Awuzie's at a much better spot, and we're expecting him to return to his top level. Overall, through 7 seasons, he missed 22 of a possible 114 games, 19% to injuries. And that's not counting some games where he was just inactive or he missed one for COVID. Sadiq Charles, we're thinking is the starting right guard. Mike Herndon wrote about him on June 6th at my site. Suffered a calf strain during the 2020 offseason, then dislocated a kneecap that cut his rookie season short. Next season, missed the final game of the year with another knee injury. 2022, cut short due to a concussion and another calf injury that popped up last year. Calf problems been somewhat chronic. If his calf injury pops up again, this is the thing that's held him back. Washington really liked him. He did really well in Washington. He kept getting nicked up. If Sadiq Charles gets nicked up here in training camp or during the season, he's a prominent factor in what they're expecting to do on the offensive line. Even if somehow he's not a star, he's a top flight backup for them. But can't have him hurt. Sadiq Charles is a big factor for this team if healthy. If healthy. Elijah Molden, who we're not even sure should be the guy next to Amani Hooker, though I think we would all pencil him in there right now. If they don't get Simmons, if they don't get Diggs, if Adams doesn't outplay him in training camp and maybe overtake him there. Missed 2 games last year with the hamstring, 15 games the year before with the groin. If you're looking for a soft tissue injury guy who's left after Christian Fulton and after David Long, it's probably Elijah Molden. You hope he benefits from the new sports performance staff, but he doesn't have a great record so far. Elijah Molden, key player for this team, if healthy.
Real quick, he's a great example. You're right. He is the guy who was with all those guys and having those issues, and it's possible he gets over it. It's also possible he gets over it because he
had some bad luck
and had some bad luck before and had some good luck. But if he does, it will be attributed to the new, right?
no matter what.
Whether it's true or not,
Right.
it will be attributed to it. But that's how it goes. The results lead the discussion.
Ryan Stonehouse, not injury prone by any means, suffered a gruesome injury from a terrible play. Coach got fired for it, but we have no idea the state of his knee and lower leg, which got mangled
He looked all right moving
against
around.
the Colts December 3rd. He looked all right moving around, but there's a big difference between moving around
And crushing it.
and planting that leg with all the force you put on it to pound a football. We don't know when he's going to be ready. So he'll be healthy at some point, but that's somebody we're keeping an eye on. Colton Dowell, undoubtedly starting the season on PUP, suffered the torn ACL week 17 against Houston. He's going to be out of the picture. Jeffrey Simmons, I add at the bottom of this list. He's done well to tough out injuries the last 2 seasons, but he's not injury prone, but he's been unlucky. Wasn't the same after that 2 years ago. That injury was earlier than most of us remember. Week 7, the ankle injury in 2021. Then last year, week 13.
Wait, 2022.
2022. 2022, sorry.
Yep.
Week 13 knee injury last year ended his season, though he probably could have played if anything was at stake. The knee had him questionable 2 years ago for 6 weeks and out for 2 weeks, and he was not the same. Also, Danico Autry was missing for some of that, which really hurt him. The ankle cost him 5 games. If healthy, Jeffrey Simmons is a hell of a player if he's got good people next to him. If he's not healthy, he's toughing it out, but he's not the same level of player. Others you put on this list, Nicholas Petit-Frere is coming back from that shoulder from last year. We haven't seen him yet. Tony Pollard, you hope, is in the same situation as Awuzie, where he's a year removed from a serious injury. Kenneth Murray missed the last 2 games of last season with a shoulder injury, didn't participate in the offseason. And T'Vondre Sweat, I said yesterday near the end of OTAs, Callahan said he was confident Sweat would be ready. A week out, I'm hearing he's expected to be back. We're not sure if that's a downgrade or just semantics.
All right, we come back. I've got a big question for PK on all this information. Robbie and Rex are 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex, 102.5, 106.2 The Game. Paul Karhusky in for Robbie Stanley. We're jamming out to some Rush here, which is a much, much better band than Bush, might I
If
add.
you like to listen to a nasally guy, sounds like he winds his way through every song.
I can't believe you're going to disrespect Geddy Lee like that. This
got an
is
awful
one of
voice.
your worst takes.
It's got an awful
You think
voice.
Bush is better than Rush? Replace one letter, take the R out, put the B in. You immediately start circling the drain.
I hate terrible
please help me out.
vocalists.
Please help me out, people. Please help me out.
I smoke weed constantly.
Rush is way better than Bush.
Answer my question.
Okay.
Do you think he has a pleasant voice? His voice is horrific.
I mean, pleasant. He's a rock singer. I think he sings a lot of great songs, and his voice does not bother me whatsoever.
His voice is
He's also a
horrific.
great bass player, and they might have the greatest drummer of all time. But
Regardless, that's a typical Rush answer.
okay,
You go straight to the drum. Neil
Peart.
Peart is the answer to everything regarding Rush.
I like.
It
Geddy
takes
Lee.
more than a good drummer to be a good band.
I like Geddy Lee's voice. I like
Geddy
it.
Lee's voice is
Absolutely. I mean, maybe it would be annoying if like you were sitting there all day long, back and forth with Geddy Lee, talking about mundane things. But yeah, I think his voice works great.
I'd
on
rather
their-
converse with him than hear
on
him
their
sing.
songs. Well, Dennis says Springsteen has the voice of an angel. That's
Has a
sarcasm.
rock and roll voice.
That's sarcasm for you. I think Geddy Lee has a rock and roll voice. It's a different rock and roll voice.
Yeah, if you suck in helium before you sing, that's a rock and that's a helium rock and roll voice.
Incredible. All right, so on your Titans, that's quite a list of if healthy Titans. My question for you is, and I know you don't have like a snappy, quick answer, but do you feel like, because we know, as Adam brought up earlier, the Titans set the record for players used, back-to-back years, but do you think that this is a list like this is, where do you think it would, if you did this for every team in the league, how do you think this would fit into that context?
I think it'd be
And I
high.
know it's just
I think it would
guesswork.
be high. I mean, I think they've gotten rid of some problematic people. Christian Fulton, off the top of my head, is one. Look, I know this is not a popular stance. I think the number one thing that's worked against the Titans with injuries is luck. And so I think their luck is due to change. And like you said, when their luck changes, if their luck changes, they will get credit for
for
the
changing
new
everything.
strength and
Yeah.
performance for whatever Callahan changes in terms of a practice style and all of that. And I won't say that there aren't things, that there weren't things about the way Vrabel operated that may have added to the potential for it. But we'll also see in the first 2 weeks here, Vrabel was huge on these 6 weeks away and what guys did to keep themselves ready. Are we going to see some soft injury stuff for guys coming back here? If we do, then I think that we should all say, hey, Vrabel was right about these 6 weeks and about guys being prepared. And he gets a little bit of a hand washing on,
Well, you can.
on some of them.
Or you could also say, okay, so they got some bad luck. that's
Well,
the problem with injuries.
continued
I mean,
bad luck,
Yeah.
which Vrabel, I don't think came right out and said, but believed. And again, I'll use the most recent bad injury. Colton Dowell running down the sideline, double teamed on special teams, tearing an ACL is not preventable by any training methods.
Exactly. Yeah, it depends on the soft tissue stuff that's the stuff that, okay, what can you do? What kind of different things
And
can you
soft
do?
tissue injuries
still
were down
individual.
last year.
Yeah.
Nicholas Petit-Frere hurting his shoulder in line play
Has nothing to
is
do
a
with
football
any,
injury.
Has nothing to do with any sort of program, practice schedule, anything like that. It's purely the game of football, and nasty things happen to these bodies all the time.
And I think the general consensus amongst the best analysts in football is that, maybe the top 15% and the bottom 15% have some training or stylistic issues involved, but that generally teams have lucky and unlucky years injury wise. I've talked to people about it. I talked to I think I asked Kyle Shanahan about it. I asked Adam Peters about it at the at the combine, who was with San Francisco and is now GM of the Commanders. And they said injury luck was great for us. Adam Peters said the 1 year that we went to the Super Bowl. Injury luck is something that teams know they need in their best years.
There's a million would-be champions that have bad luck, and there are a lot of champions that it's amazing how they just, again, you can give them credit. You can blame them when they have bad luck. Tyler on the text line says, I've been told by players that other teams did more preventive maintenance. I guess we can nickname that, quote, luck.
Well, we'll see how preventative maintenance goes now, because
But they did.
have
I mean,
changed.
they explored that. Again, maybe they got the wrong answers and they just had bad ideas, but they certainly did not sit around saying, yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine.
But again, preventative maintenance doesn't stop Colton Dowell's injury. It doesn't stop
exactly.
Nick Petit-Frere's injury.
Of course not. You can go through all these guys. Okay. Again, to me, it's just, it's purely, it's groin, hamstring,
Soft tissue.
things like that. Okay. There may be things you can do. Now, was there some sort of failure in preparation that got Elijah Molden a really brutal, like kind of sports hernia injury? I doubt it, but that's what he had, soft tissue. But you go through these, and like Jeff Simmons, I mean,
an ankle and a knee.
The ankle is, those things, you aren't preventing them other than you don't step on the guy's foot or you don't plant here and twist. I mean, like, this whole topic is, I do think that
fans make it too cut and dry.
Well, of course, you want accountability, right? Like, you want an answer, like, why is this happening to us over and over again? I do think some of the answer was a willingness to overlook it. And I do wonder if, like, Chad Brinker's model for trying to basically, I think, track injury history better, right, for guys. I mean, that's kind of a way of simplifying it.
He seems to think there's more predictive possibilities than sound believable to me. I would love to sit down with him. I hope I get a chance at some point, or one of us does, for him to explain the predictive qualities. I think the best thing is to stay away from guys with injury histories. Like you're saying, don't draft guys who've been hurt. Don't sign Bud Dupree while you know you're going to have to wait on him for a year to recover from a torn ACL.
Right. Yeah, no, without
Robert
question.
Woods.
And obviously Caleb Farley. I mean, that's.
Or draft Caleb Farley. Exactly.
But I'd love to think that there are more factors that can work as predictive measures. Look, when it comes down to it, still the biggest story, I think, in football in the last 20 years is the concussion situation and CTE and everything. And I mean, to me, like, I hope at some point we can have there could be a way to diagnose someone and say, you are vulnerable, you are susceptible, you should not play this game, because some people clearly are and some people clearly aren't, right? I mean, to me, like, there are people who've gone through and taken the beating and don't seem to be affected, and some people who are affected greatly, right? Is there a way for that to be predictive someday?
And, a seemingly minor thing, like you can wear a Guardian cap in a game now. You probably were there when Chig Okonkwo talked about it this year, and he said, not a single guy's going to wear that Guardian cap. Why? Fashion.
Yeah, because it looks goofy. Yeah, I if it helps you and it does not impede your movement whatsoever, I mean, who cares? You're already running around in, like pajama pants with pads in them if you really want to look at it, right?
I tend to agree with him, though. I bet we don't see many, especially early.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, are there a few guys who start to do it and say, heck yeah, I'm going to be safer, and then it becomes okay, whatever. It just becomes a normal thing to see people running around out there like they have who's the guy from Buffalo, the big helmet. You know what I'm talking about.
Wasn't Tasker, was it?
It wasn't Tasker, but somebody help me on the text line. It was not Steve Tasker. Hairmella Henry said, if Paul listened to more Rush, we would all bring him in closer to the heart. Well done, Hairmella Henry. Closer to the heart. All right, we come back. We've got Sam Conn Jr. We're going to switch gears, talk a little bit of SEC football. We've ignored SEC media largely.
Mark Kelso.
Thank you. Kelso with the big helmet. But we've ignored SEC Media Days. We're going to get into that a little bit. There are some interesting developments down there in Texas. Coming up next, Robbie and Rex on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex 102.5, 106 to The Game. Joe Rexer here, Paul Kaharski in for Robbie Stanley. Very excited to welcome in our next guest from Dallas, Texas, where I think today is the last day of SEC Media Days. And Sam Kahn Jr., fantastic writer covering college football. We call Sam the Texpert. He is the Texpert at The Athletic. He writes all things Texas and all things college football. Sam, how's it going down there in Dallas?
It is good. It's unseasonably cool right now, which I'm going to knock on wood and take that as a win, because when I got here a couple days ago, it was about 100 degrees. But it was actually cool enough to sit outside and eat dinner last night. So I'm going to take that as a win and hope it lasts for this last day here.
That is wild, because we're still. I guess we're getting cooler today, but we've been pushing 100 here. So well, that's good. That's good to hear. So first of all, I want to get into this fantastic story that you and Max Olson and Bruce Feldman did on sort of the butterfly effect of Nick Saban retiring, which is a fascinating story. But first of all, this week, Sam, I think today, like Mike Elko, you got another Texas guy talking today, Texas A&M, of course, head coach. But this week for you, what would maybe the 2 or 3 things that stand out to you as the most interesting?
Well, first, I'll start with this, and you kind of referenced him. The presence of Nick Saban here at this thing, but not as a coach, has been fascinating to watch. Just watching him be on the TV set, doing the SEC network coverage and walking around. He actually interviewed Kalen DeBoer yesterday, which was an interesting dynamic. That has been fascinating to watch, because I still feel like he carries the star power that he did as a head coach. And it's obviously because he only retired 6 months ago. But that has been fascinating to me. And then obviously Kalen DeBoer having his first step up to the mic as the Alabama coach, that has been interesting to see. And also for me yesterday, Steve Sarkisian in Texas was here. I was wondering if they were going to get a lot of questions like Texas A&M and Missouri did 12 years ago when they first made their debut at SC Media Days, and people asking them, "Hey, are you guys ready for the SEC? Do you know what to expect?" And I didn't sense that. I sensed a lot of respect for Texas, a sense that they're ready to come in and compete right away. And I think obviously that has a lot to do with what they did last year, making the college football playoff, winning the 12, the way Sark has recruited and built that roster. It tells me that nobody's expecting them to come in and be a punching bag. I think Oklahoma got some more questions along those lines, because I think people have questions about how competitive they'll be, and a little bit more uncertainty about whether they're ready for this grind in this conference. But it was fascinating to me to watch how people talked and viewed both of those teams, the newcomers coming in.
Well, that's one question I have for you, Sam. What's the better program? And I know this is a very subjective, topic of how you judge a program, but what's the better program in your mind, Texas or Oklahoma?
I mean, historically, it's Oklahoma, because they have more national championships. They have a better track record. And even in the last 25 years, they won the Big 12 6 years in a row up until 2021. They have been better over time. But right now, if you're trying to decide which one of these teams is more equipped for the SEC, which of these teams is more equipped to compete for a national championship, it's Texas. And it's because of the way Steve Sarkisian has recruited across the board, not just at quarterback, which gets a lot of attention because they've got Quinn Ewers, they've got Arch Manning, and they've got a lot of offensive skill talent. But they've done a hell of a job recruiting the line of scrimmage. And you saw that last year when they played Alabama, when they went to Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, not just, by a touchdown or by, some stroke of luck. They beat them at the line of scrimmage. And now I think it remains to be seen if they can do that every single week in the SEC. But the fact that they are equipped physically to do that, I think makes them right now better positioned in the near term.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, obviously Texas has underwhelmed for a long time, but I mean, Sark, as you know, I mean, he's good. He's really good, and I think they're going to be fascinating this year and beyond in the league. Also, again, I want to talk about the Saban story, but just Kalen DeBoer, it's an impossible task to follow Nick Saban. Also, I think he's really good, and so far this phase of his job, I'm impressed with how things have kind of been held together, and in terms of roster building and things like that. What do you think is fair to expect of him, like in the next 5 years as Alabama's coach?
Oh, man. I tell you, I don't know if he's going to get a fair shake, at least from the Alabama fans. I think those of us on the outside looking in and viewing that program and knowing the track record that follows him with Saban, or precedes him rather, that's impossible to live up to. Let's just be honest. nobody is going to replicate what Nick Saban did at Alabama. Nobody, especially with as much as college football has changed now. I think it's impossible to accumulate the talent to dominate the way that he did in his time there. But I do think that Alabama there aren't really many better options. I thought Alabama made a fine choice in Kalen. And you look at what he's done now. Now, I know it hasn't been at the highest level, but he has won everywhere he's been. He's won at the Division III level. He's won at the Group of Five level. He's won at the Power Five level and took Washington to a national championship. And I am encouraged, like you said, with the roster building. The way they've recruited so far, the amount of 5-stars they're getting is what you would expect under a Saban program. So they're clearly doing something right in recruiting. And I think that was the biggest question about Kalen. Nobody questions that Kalen DeBoer can coach ball. Everybody knows he's a really good offensive mind. He's a really good head coach, and that's been proven with what he's done with his program. But to the recruiting and whether he could recruit at the high level in the SEC, I think was the big question. And so far, 6-7 months in, he's doing a pretty good job. So I'm really encouraged by that. And I think it's fair to expect, hey, get to the playoff this year, maybe win a game. But Alabama fans are going to want him to win a national championship within probably the first 3 years. And that's, I don't think that's unrealistic. But if you don't do it, what are you going to do after 3 years? Are you going to move on? Are you going to make a change? And I think that's what makes the situation so difficult for him, is that I don't know that there's a way to ever meet the expectations following Nick Saban.
These media days are more and more of an entertainment event. I know Sam Pittman, Mike Elko, Hugh Freeze, Mark Stoops still to talk today. Who's the worst performer, least captivating?
Who's the worst
quote that you've seen?
Well, it's good. I'm going to tell you, it's about to be in 25 minutes when I talk to him in a minute. It's going to be Mike Elko at Texas A&M. And you know what? He's totally okay with that, because I have noticed that ever since he got to Texas A&M, there has been, I think, a purposeful downplaying of everything A&M. Not about the school, but about the program, because they were, in a way, I think, under Jimbo Fisher, a little bit overexposed. They were in the headlines for their number one recruiting class a few years ago. Of course, we all remember the spat that he had with Nick Saban verbally, hit a contract that he was given the extension after the 2020 season. So many reasons that A&M was in the headlines, and it wasn't about their football team. It wasn't about the actual play on the field. And I think Mike Elko has been very intentional about laying low, being under the radar. Don't make any noise. Let's just let our play and our performance on the field do the talking. So today, when he steps up to the mic in about 20 minutes, I anticipate he's going to say nothing that gives us headline material. Even when he did the rubber chicken tour, I like to call it, when he did his speaking events at some of these alumni clubs around the state of Texas, I went to a couple of them. And, buddy, he's not saying anything that's going to grab a headline. So
not even to the alumni clubs.
yeah. He entertained him and he gave him some fun stuff, but nothing that you're going to post online is going to be like, oh my gosh, can you believe what Mike Elko said? He's not going to do that. He's going to be the most milquetoast boring quote possible, and I think that is by design. So that is going to be, of the 16 coaches here, that's going to be your guy who's going to be the least interesting.
With Saban out, Kirby Smart is now the guy of those 16. How well suited is he to that? How much you think he likes being that guy? As unexpected as maybe it was for him to reach that level now.
I mean, I think certainly the spotlight is not something that I necessarily think he loves, and certainly doing all these things, but Nick Saban didn't love it either. And so, but it didn't stop him from being good. I think the thing that Kirby understands and probably appreciates is that he's in the position to not just be the team that contends for a national title, but to be the dominant alpha dog in this conference. Because Saban was that. There's a little bit of a vacuum now. And Kirby can kind of fill that. He's already kind of on the way there. When you look at the level of program he's built at Georgia, you look at the level they recruit, you look at the way they beat teams and the way they wear them down and the way they beat them up physically. I think he wants to be that guy. And I think that's part of his goal is to, hey, let's make ourselves the next dominant program. But the way to do that is going to be because he worked under Nick Saban, it's going to be the old Saban method. It's going to be, hey, we're not going to think about 2-3 years in the future. We're going to think about today. We're going to think about this season, and we're going to think about beating the crap out of whoever's in front of us. And I tell you, he's done a great job. Certainly rose to stardom a lot quicker than I anticipated. You know, when I think everybody knew when he was defensive coordinator there that he was going to be successful wherever he went, but to take Georgia into national contention as quickly as he did at Georgia, I thought was eye-opening, and now he's been able to sustain it over time. And I think that is, if you're looking at a program to succeed Alabama as the next big time, champion, multi-time champion over the years and annual contender, it's Georgia, no doubt about it.
Talking to Sam Kahn Jr., the Techspert at The Athletic. Last thing for you, Sam. I want people to read this story that you guys did on Nick Saban. It's such a fascinating piece. Just tell the listener a little bit about how it came about and what you guys discovered about just the domino effect of that one decision and which according to him, he made in a brief period of time.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We all knew that at some point Nick Saban was going to retire, but nobody knew when. And I think it's fair to say that when it happened in mid-January, that we were a little bit surprised by the timing because we had gotten through the end of the season. It was starting to get to winter conditioning, and all of a sudden, right 2 days after the national championship, Saban's gone. And Max Olson, as you mentioned, Bruce Feldman, who worked on this story with me on the butterfly effect and all the chain reaction of coaching moves around the country, 423 total. We have done stories like this before. Max and Bruce did one on the Egg Bowl a few years ago when both of those coaches got fired. Max did one about Mac Brown 10 years ago to track, okay, how many moves happen as a result, not just the moves on that staff, but then the staff that follow that, like Kalen DeBoer, all the Washington staff moves. Then Jed Fish, all the Arizona staff moves. Brent Brennan, all the San Jose State staff moves, because all those coaches followed. So we follow that chain reaction. And like I said, 423 either coaches or staffers. We're not just talking head coaches. We're not talking assistant coaches. We're also talking strength and conditioning, player development, administrative assistants, nutrition, all these people, because when one head coach leaves, 50 or 60 different people in a staff are going to be impacted, and not just them, but also their families, because they're wondering when Maurice Linguist leaves Buffalo from the head coach to be a DB's coach and co-DC at Alabama, all those people at Buffalo are wondering, am I going to have a job? And that was fascinating to us. And we started it the day after Saban retired to start tracking all the moves. Max Olson is the MVP for doing the spreadsheet for tracking every single one of those moves. And we tried to help him fill some of the blanks, but he did the legwork on following every one of those moves and trying to figure out, because guess what? Not all these people are covered. The nutritionist at Buffalo, maybe we may not know if and when they stayed, and if they don't even have a bio on their team site. And so it was a fun project to work on. It was fun to talk to the 20 some odd coaches that we talked to and understand all the different points they are at their lives. Why some of these head coaches made the moves they did, but also some of the coaches way down the chain. I talked to a junior college coach in Texas who, 5 steps from Saban's retirement, ended up getting a promotion from defensive coordinator to head coach at his junior college. And he makes a fraction of what Nick Saban does, and he has way different problems than what Nick Saban does, but he still loves ball just as much as Nick Saban does. And my favorite quote was the one he told us, is that, you know what? Every football coach has problems. It's just that Nick Saban has Mercedes-Benz problems and we have Hyundai problems. And I thought that was a very astute way to put it, because even though the worlds are so different, this football coaching profession is still so interconnected.
No doubt. And speaking of fun, apparently Nick Saban is now fun, which is wild to see. Sam Kahn Jr., the Techspert, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And I want you to get there and get a good seat, because it sounds like Elko is going to be a blast. So enjoy that.
Thanks so much, guys. Y'all take care. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks. Sam Kahn Jr.,
Thank
the
you.
Techspert at The Athletic, talking college football. We come back, we'll react to him a little bit, talk a little bit about the GOAT, Nick Saban. Robbie and Rex Show, 102.5, 106. Final segment, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106 through the game. Paul Kuharski in. Great stuff there from Sam Kahn Jr., the Texpert. I just love the nickname. It's just such a great nickname, the Texpert. He lives in Texas. He covers all the Texas teams. And now that means he's writing more about SEC football. What do you think, real quick, PK, about the Saban dynamic? I must say, and I'm hopeful that it's true of Bill Belichick too. Once he, gets off the carousel, that these gruff, gritty, non-communicative coaches are all of a sudden going to be just breaths of fresh air.
I hate it on the media.
You hate them on the media?
No, I like them in the media. I hate that they thrive in the media and get on camera and laugh and giggle and buddy up to their colleagues after they were complete bleep holes to the media for the bulk of their career. I think it makes them gigantic hypocrites. And I think you can't, I hate that fans look at it and love it without pausing to consider that when they were on the other side, they were complete jerks.
I must say, there are times when you surprise me even with your ability to find something to complain about. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, I guess to me, it's like if you bring something to the fan and even to us watching, and you're willing to bring it out now, and you bring value, I'm here for it. But I mean, you're not wrong. It's Saban, I've talked about him a lot. He actually progressed through his career to the point where by the end at Alabama, he had mellowed a lot.
Saban's a liar. Saban stood and told respectable professionals who were working hard that he wasn't going to Alabama. Then he was surprised when those people were sitting in the first row of the Alabama introductory press conference. All right. Belichick increasingly had no interest in helping people like Mike Reese, who works his butt off up there to be as fair as possible and never publicly got frustrated with being nearly berated on a daily basis. I stand with my colleagues. And so that those people now get up and smile holding a microphone, doing the same job as some of those people, irritates the hell out of me.
See, this could have been a good rant. Well, still he's going to be disappointed as he listens to this whole show because I think he got one mention. He said yesterday that all you do is complain about him for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But now he's complaining about you. I do want to bring this to your attention. He says, Holmgren was a disappointment. I'm sorry that Super Bowl appearance didn't count. He made the playoffs 5 years in a row. And to Paul's point about second chance coaches, that Andy Reid really sucks, huh? Reid is a good example. I would agree with PK, though. I got to take your side versus Stilly on Holmgren. Yes, he made the Super Bowl. They lost to young Roethlisberger and the Steelers in Detroit in 2006. But he was not what was promised. And he was 4-6.
Also, he went to Cleveland as an executive and did very poorly.
And look, they went 4-6 in the playoffs in his time there. So they won a couple games during that particular run. And again, a Super Bowl is a Super Bowl. I'm not disputing it. But that was also his only season with more than 10 wins in Seattle. I mean, his total Seattle record was 86-74, 541 winning percent. That was not what was promised when the great Mike Holmgren came to Seattle and was given the keys to everything. So I think I'm gonna score one for you.
Okay,
against
well,
Stilley.
let's go with this.
But Andy Reid is a good point.
Andy Reid's a great point. I found a story. Best second chance coaches. Bill Belichick. I said the first chance was terrible.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm talking about a guy who was good and then was good again. So Belichick doesn't count. Don Shula, excellent. Ancient history. I'm talking about modern.
Yeah. You're talking, right? I mean, people don't even remember that he was the Colts coach.
Andy Reid, excellent. Mike Shanahan wasn't so good in his first go round, and also ancient history. Pete Carroll wasn't so good in his first go around.
Pete Carroll became much more attractive to the NFL because of what he did in college.
Tom Coughlin, sure. Ancient history. Marv Levy, ancient history. Marty Schottenheimer, ancient history. Dungy, sure. Sid Gilman's 10th on the list.
Hey,
Weeb Eubanks.
Sid Gilman.
Don Coryell. So, I mean, if you want to pick out 3 exceptions, Jared, good for you. Look at all the rest.
All right, Stilly, you did get the show closer. Congratulations. Coming up next, Chase and Big Joe, Robbie and Rex, 102.5.
Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your lock. See you tomorrow. See ya.